The strike on the Ben Gurion Airport really did scare the Israelis. Again, because that is their air link to the world. And immediately, several airlines canceled flights to Israel. And this is something, that they say, hey, this is serious. So we got to. That's why they responded in such a huge way. That's the way. Of course, there's another thing they could do. They could actually agree to a ceasefire, and then it would be over. And it would actually, I would argue, in Israel's interest to do so, but they don't do that. It's always that they always double down with a military solution and punishing their enemies. Our enemy injured several people and hit a grove on our airport. We got to destroy their airport.
Well, I guess we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the Houthis do. We'll see if they have been holding back, and now if they don't have to worry about shooting missiles and drones at the U.S. Navy, will they be able to concentrate just on blockading Israel completely? Because I heard that their largest port in Israel has already declared bankruptcy. They have really damaged Israel economically in terms of the sea shipping. And now if they can shut down air traffic as well, we're talking about big trouble for Israel. I mean, anybody that wants to get out, they're going to have to be bussed over to Jordan or wherever, fly out of Amman. And that's got to be a bit sketchy, scary for them too. A bus full of Zionists going through on a bus to Jordan, they're not going to be welcome there. I mean, more than half the population of Jordan is Palestinian. It's
Well, the Israeli airlines will continue to fly, but it does make it more difficult. It means ticket prices will be higher, the number of seats available lower. Not everybody who wants to leave when he, will be able to leave when he wants to leave. That's how it's going to be.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we'll see what the Houthis do. If they destroy Ben Gurion Airport, really are able to show that they can hit it,
right,
and they can continue to hit it, then nobody's flying out of there,
Well, again, it's just like, I don't know if the Houthis have that capability. They might, but the Iranians definitely do. And that's something that, of course, you would think the Israelis would be thinking about. But they're willing to take that risk, apparently. A war with Iran could mean the end of Ben Gurion and, many very other important facilities. Israel could be very, very seriously damaged. Again, it's a small country. And it's able to, exercise this kind of regional hegemony because of the United States. But in a war, the U.S. won't be able to protect them from the missiles that fly from Iran. If the U.S. really does launch a full-scale attack on Iran, those missiles will fly in, and Israel, it will not be possible for the U.S. or anyone else to defend Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even if war with Iran doesn't break out, the Houthis have just shown that they are getting better and better. I mean, just think about when Biden tried to stop the Houthis. Okay, we weren't able to do it. It was a failure. But now Trump has done it. It has come over after a year of Biden's failure. And in just those less than 2 months of Trump trying to do it, the Houthis have shown improvements. We've lost 3 F-18s now. We've lost 23 Reaper drones. They're getting better and better at shooting down these Reaper drones. They seem to be getting better and better at attacking our ships. And we're seeing their missiles going through, Israel's air defenses. Despite, multiple THAAD systems, our most advanced anti-ballistic missile defense systems being in Israel, being operated by hundreds of U.S. soldiers now. And Arrow 1, 2, 3, David Sling, the Iron Dome, all of them. They're penetrating it, and they're doing it with one missile at a time. So if we just continue this trajectory, within a year they can begin to strike Israel with increasing impunity. And so it's just like the trend is just all negative for the Israelis. For the U.S. Navy, we continue to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you think that this may sound like a crazy question, but do you think the Yemenis have more advanced missiles than the United States, or they will in a year? I mean,
well, they
have
might.
Hypersonic missiles?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, there's no question that the Russians have more advanced missiles than the U.S. does. There's just no question about that. What they they developed their first hypersonic in 2018, and we're still trying to do it, and haven't succeeded. I'm actually amazed at that. I thought that we would have caught up much more quickly. And we know, again, according to the Middle East Eye, that the Russians have been supplying technology to the Houthis. But we also know that Iran has a very sophisticated missile program, and we've seen what they're able to do. And they continue to improve their missiles. They just rolled out a new intermediate range ballistic missile. So it's not impossible because, again, the combination of Iran and Russia, and then it appears that the Yemenis have some brilliant scientists of their own, up in these desert mountains. It seems rather remarkable. I mean, for a country that's so poor and has been under attack for so long, that you could actually cultivate this kind of talent. But that's what we hear. And it's not just that they're receiving shipments of missiles from Iran, but they are actually, designing and modifying these missiles on their own, and they seem to know what they're doing. It's just really quite remarkable. I don't know. I'm in awe of them. I don't see how this is possible, but it appears to be the reality.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't need to be at an institution now to get information and knowledge. With the internet, and brilliant minds, or we've talked about this before, are often corrupted by these institutions. They're captured by these institutions. So maybe we're getting dumber because we have all these institutions. You're out there, you're a hermit that lived in the woods for a long time. Brilliant minds can live up in the mountains in the woods and figure things out.
And I guess you can live up in the mountains of Yemen with just a piece of chalk and just draw your missile designs on the cave wall. I don't know.
Yeah, no, obviously.
I'm joking too, but you make a good point. It's much easier to acquire information, and they have access to the internet, and they can do that.
Yeah, very impressive people, clearly, and they're able to evolve and adapt to the situation. And I almost feel like the problem with the United States is that it's just this old machine that's too hard to make any adjustments to. So that's why we're just stuck with our old aircraft carriers and pumping out tanks and spending more and more money on technology that's really antiquated, instead of being nimble and lean like Yemen is able to be, because they don't have that clunky, overbearing infrastructure that has been built 100 years ago, for military.
Yeah, I actually, when you say that, it just brought to mind, I think, which I think a rather, let's say, eye-opening analogy, and that is the cellular phone networks. And I know that cellular phone networks in the U.S. are a mess. There are a lot of blind spots, and there are a multiplicity of plans, but no plan really meets all your needs, and it's actually
very expensive.
Yeah, rather expensive. Yeah, by international standards, very expensive. But then these countries, some of them, very, very poor countries that never had the extensive landline system that the U.S. did. See, the thing is that the U.S. did have this very, very well-developed telecommunication system before this new technology came on, and that's partly the impediment. It's just that, but some of these very poor countries that never had these landline systems, when cellular technology appeared, they said, "Oh, this is something we can do cheaply. We just put up little towers here and there," and then very quickly the entire country was covered, and they could provide the service at very low cost. And so, I think that you can say that maybe something similar is happening in this case. You can simply, being very strong in the old technology can in fact be a burden and a barrier to developing a new technology sometimes.
Right, for sure. Yeah, just to add on to that real quick, living in China, my phone plan was about $1.15 a month. And I had complete coverage everywhere, super fast 5G. I could be up in the mountains of Yunnan and be streaming videos, no problem. So it's true. Yeah. And then I come back here, I'm like, why do I even pay $50 a month and it doesn't even work in my home half the time? It's,
right. I think more than half the time from it.
Yeah. Okay, I know we want to talk a little bit about Ukraine.
Sure.
But just one last thing in the Middle East, and then we'll move. Is just can you give us a quick update on what's happening in Gaza now?
It's more of the same. More, it's the starvation continues, the killings continue. I think typically like 40 to 50 people are killed every day. Yeah, those are the reports. These are documented killings, the deaths that the hospitals, the medical authorities know about. But again, when somebody's buried in the rubble or vaporized by a bomb, because that happens too, again, these bombs, if you're very close to the detonation point, you're just going to be vaporized. You're not going to be including these statistics. So anyway, at least 50 people are or 40 to 50 are being killed every day. The starvation continues. It's the same nightmare. And the starvation is just, the deaths are just beginning to occur. We're talking about, at this point, a fairly small number, but the children especially are just extremely malnourished and are going to be, and if the blockade isn't lifted, they are going to start dying in great numbers. Even if it is lifted soon and food comes in, I think, from what I understand, according to health experts, many of these children are going to be permanently damaged. The malnutrition is so extreme. So yeah, things are very dismal. There's talk within Israel of setting up some sort of new distribution system that would be done actually through private companies. But it would only be in the southern part of Gaza. So it's clearly a part of an ethnic cleansing plan that they have. And they, as I think you mentioned last time, they are planning to move in a big way. They're calling up their reservists. I think what they're doing is they're going to send the reservists up north to the border with Lebanon or in Lebanon, because of course Israel is hanging on to territory there that they should have withdrawn from according to their ceasefire treaty, but they've broken it. And also in Syria. So these reservists are going to go up there, and then conscript soldiers are going to come south and go into Gaza. And so we're talking about tens of thousands for a major operation. And it appears that what they're going to do is just push the Gazans out of the northern part of Gaza as the first step in ethnic cleansing. We saw the beginnings of that plan before the ceasefire, like towards the end of last year. But it looks like they're going to go try to carry that out right now. And if they do start allowing food aid to come in, it'll be apparently through private companies controlled by them in the southern part of Gaza, and nothing will be provided in the north. So they're going to use a combination of starvation and military force to push all the Gazans that are in northern Gaza to the southern half of their very, very small territory. And it only will be a small part of that southern territory. They have completely destroyed Rafah, and I think that declared that that's off limits. Rafah is the city that's right there at the close to the border with Egypt, the southern end of Gaza. And then they also have a buffer zone, along their border. So we're not even talking about they're going to push these people not into just the southern half, but just a fraction of that southern half. And the Gaza was already densely populated, so you can imagine what that's going to be like. And then where they're going to stay, they've got to have. They don't even most families don't even have the tents, but it's the same old, really horrifying, dismal story, in Gaza.
Yeah, that's why I watched the Houthis so much, that there's such a amazing story for me, because I want them to, they're the only ones I feel like are doing anything and that can maybe help end this. I don't know.
Right. They have put real pressure on Israel, again, by causing these flight cancellations, and then also, reducing shipping, which has put real pressure on their ports. Israel is feeling pressure for them. And if other countries joined, they don't even have to join militarily, but if they joined an economic blockade, the pressure would go way, way up on Israel. But it's Yeah, the Houthis are remarkable, and I think they're going to go down in history as just a very a band of they'll become
Yeah,
there is
immortalized.
like we're talking about it. We're seeing I shouldn't say a myth because it's real, but a legend. Yeah, a legend being created right before our eyes.
Right. Yeah. Mad respect. Yeah, that's why I will see what the ceasefire means, but I don't believe that the Houthis will stop. If they somehow do, we see what that means. If they allow Israeli shipping in, it would just be a flame that's extinguished. But I think
Yeah.
they understand that they are a legend in the making right now.
Yeah.
That everybody is watching them and supporting them, and and they're taking these blows, but they keep moving forward. So I think there's a huge sense of pride within Yemen, well deserved.